When a Shopify theme file has a line like if product.available, what actually happens between that plain text and the HTML a customer sees? Today we stop treating Liquid as a black box and open the real interpreter. Shopify's Liquid gem is fully public, so every piece of code in this episode is pulled verbatim from the actual Shopify/Liquid repository: the Lexer that tokenizes raw markup, the parser that turns tokens into an expression, the tag contract every single Liquid tag implements, and the condition evaluator behind if and unless. This is genuinely how it works, not a simplified diagram of it. Welcome back to Shopify Development Deep Dive. Part 1 mapped the whole platform and drew a hard line: themes render Liquid, server-side, inside Shopify's own request cycle. Today we cross that line and open Liquid itself. Liquid isn't a Shopify secret, it's a public Ruby gem, Shopify/Liquid, used by plenty of software outside Shopify too. Because it's public, we don't have to guess how a tag gets parsed or how a condition gets evaluated. We can read the actual source, method by method, and that's exactly what this episode does. 5 things should click by the end of this part. How Liquid's Lexer turns raw markup plain text sitting between curly braces into typed tokens, before any evaluation happens at all. How the parser takes that stream of tokens and turns it into an expression a tag can actually act on. The one contract every single Liquid tag implements under the hood, whether it's a simple tag like assign or a block tag like if. How a real condition, a variable equals a string, or a variable contains something, actually gets evaluated at render time. And where all of this genuinely comes from, the real, public Shopify/Liquid gem, not a simplified explanation of it. Here's the whole pipeline in 5 stages. The Lexer turns raw markup, the text between curly braces, into typed tokens, identifiers, strings, numbers, comparisons. The parser walks those tokens and turns them into an expression a tag can evaluate, resolving things like dotted lookups along the way. A tag, or the document class for the top level of a template, takes that expression and becomes a parse node sitting in a tree. A condition inside an if or unless evaluates that node against real data only at render time, not at parse time. And finally, template.render walks the whole node tree and produces the output string. Every tag in Liquid, built-in or custom, moves through these same 5 stages. There's no special internal fast path for if or for over anything else. A few things help, though none are strictly required. Ruby installed locally, if you want to follow along by running gem install Liquid and trying this yourself in IRB. But you don't actually need Ruby to get value from this episode. We're reading real, public source line by line, and the ideas transfer to any templating system. Some comfort with the general idea of parsing helps, turning text into structured data before you ever run anything with it. And if you watched part 1, the mental model there helps directly dawn themes or Liquid, and this part opens exactly what sits underneath that word. This is the real entry point of Liquid's Lexer, straight from lexer.rb. It walks the raw markup 1 byte at a time using a string scanner, and for every position it peeks at the next byte and looks it up in a jump table, special underscore table for punctuation like pipes and dots, other tables for letters, digits, and quotes. Notice there's no regular expression scanning the whole string here, it's byte by byte dispatch through pre-built lookup tables, which is exactly why Liquid can tokenize an entire theme's worth of templates fast enough to render on every single page load. This is the real parser class's expression method. It looks at the current tokens type and :ID for something like product, a string or number for a literal, and builds up the actual expression Liquid will later evaluate. Notice the :ID branch calls variable underscore lookups right after consuming the identifier. That's the method that keeps chaining on .title or open bracket 0 close bracket, so product.title parses as one continuous lookup instead of 3 separate tokens glued together by guesswork. This is the real tag.parse class method, and it's the single contract every Liquid tag honors if, for, assign, render, and any custom tag you ever register. Notice new is marked private right below it. You can't just instantiate a tag directly. The only sanctioned entry point is this class method, which builds the tag, calls its instance level parse against the tokenizer, and hands back the finished tag. Whatever a tag does internally, it always enters the system through exactly this one door. Every Liquid template, at the very top level, is an instance of the document class, and this is its real parse method. It's a plain while loop calling parse underscore body over and over until the tokenizer runs out, then it freezes the resulting node list so it can't be mutated later. If any tag along the way raises a syntax error, this method tags that error with a line number before re-raising it, which is exactly why a broken theme file gives you a specific line, not just a generic parse failure. This is the actual operators table behind every if and unless tag in Liquid. Equal and not equal are handled by a dedicated equal_variables method rather than Ruby's own equality, which is what lets Liquid compare its own data types consistently. Less than, greater than, and their or equal variants are just handed straight to Ruby's own operators as symbols. It's a plain hash from operator string to either a lambda or a symbol. There's no hidden comparison engine. This hash genuinely is the whole dispatch table. And this is evaluate itself, the method that actually runs at render time, not at parse time. A chained condition like product.available and product.price greater than 0 isn't a nested Boolean tree in memory. It's a linked list of condition objects, and this loop walks at one link at a time, short-circuiting the moment in or finds a true result or and finds a false one. Every if tag anywhere in a Shopify theme, no matter how many ands and ors it chains, ultimately runs through this exact loop. This is the real instance-level parse method on Liquid's template class, and it's the method that actually starts everything we've looked at today. It builds a parse context from your options, builds a tokenizer which wraps the lexer we opened in step 1 over your raw source string, and hands the tokenizer straight to document.parse, the exact method from step 4. The result is stored as at root, and that node tree is what render later walks. Parsing and rendering genuinely are two separate steps, exactly like the gem's own documentation says. And here's that whole pipeline run for real. This exact two-line idiom template equals liquid : template.parse of source, then template.render with a hash of variables is lifted straight from the dot comment at the very top of template.rb itself. Parse runs the lexer, the parser, tag.parse for anything document encounters, and produces a frozen node tree. Render then walks that tree, evaluates any conditions against the hash you passed in, and returns a plain string. Every Shopify theme page you've ever loaded ran through some version of exactly this two-step call. A handful of things trip people up here. The lexer only tokenizes what's actually inside double curly braces or curly % tags. The HTML sitting around them passes straight through as plain text, untouched, which is exactly why Liquid can sit inside arbitrary markup without needing to understand HTML at all. Tag.new is private. You cannot construct a tag directly in Ruby, even a custom one. Everything goes through tag.parse, the class method we opened in step 3. An and or chain inside an if tag is not a nested Boolean tree sitting in memory. It's a flat linked list of condition objects, walked one link at a time, only at render time. And document.parse is specifically why a broken Shopify theme error points you at a real line number. That tagging happens right in the rescue block we read in step 4, not as an afterthought somewhere else. Let's pull it together. The lexer turns raw markup into type tokens, dispatched byte by byte through jump tables built once, ahead of time. The parser turns those tokens into an expression, chaining dotted lookups like product.title into one continuous piece. Every tag built in or custom implements exactly one contract, tag.parse, and we read that contract verbatim. A condition inside if or unless is a real operator's hash plus a linked list, walked and evaluated only at render time, never earlier. And template ties it all together. Parse runs once and produces a frozen node tree, and render can walk that same tree as many times as you want, with different data every time. That's genuinely how a Liquid tag becomes HTML. That's Liquid's real interpreter, straight from Shopify's own public gem. The lexer, the parser, the tag contract, and the condition evaluator, every line verbatim. Part 3 goes one layer up, into Online Store 2.0, and opens exactly how JSON templates and section settings, which we saw briefly back in Part 1, actually work underneath the theme editor. If you want the rest of this series as it publishes, subscribe now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Part 3.